Materials Usage Variance Dashboard, or MUV Dashboard for short, is a tool that is used to help visualize and quantify MUV for a company's operations. So just as a refresher for what is MUV and what is Material Usage Variance, it's the actual quantity times the actual price minus the standard quantity times the standard price. So companies will usually, for manufacturing, set a certain recipe for how much they should use various components when they're making a product. So that would be the standard quantity. But often they will use more or less, and that would be the actual quantity. So if the actual quantity is more than what they expected to use, then the MUV would be positive. And if the actual quantity is less than they expected to use, then the MUV would be negative. So the goal, of course, is to have MUV be 0. You want to predict that you're going to have the standard quantity, and then you want to actually use the standard quantity. It helps to better operations and have more efficiency within them. So, but what we did was we were able to take data from this company, and we made a clean summary of what they did with what they all had to include in it. Mainly, we wanted to have the standard, the total quantity that they actually used, and then some measures of the MUV. So, but what it does is you'll go in, and for this company, what they did was they made lids, or tops of containers, and of those tops and lids and containers, they had various colors. So we called these the parent components and parent description, and that's what the company would call it by. So they had like red, blue, green, all these different colors that they used to get to that. And what we would do is we would go in and we can look at one, and what happens is it takes this parent component and it populates the batch summary over here to where only the batches that fit with this parent component will come up. So when we click one of these batches, we can populate this first batch summary by clicking the button here, and we see that it updates for the MUV by component in this table. So if we want to populate the other graph down here, the green one, we do the same thing but with this second batch, and we click the button next to it. So we see that both are now populated and fit based on this table. So when we dive into this table, what we find is that it names the parent item, or parent name, the components in it, and what we really care about is these actual and standard cost and actual quantity and standard quantity. So what it does, this is what actually happened in the batch, and this is the standard. And the MUV should be exactly this. If it wants to be 0, then we want them to be the same. But for this, we made a flag system to show that if it was good, we said it was under 0. If it was medium, it's in between 0 and 100% of the standard. And then if it was over 100%, we said red. So these can easily be updated to whatever the company's specifications would like to be. So, and the same thing with quantity over here. And then we move to the pie chart, and what the pie chart shows is this actual cost for each of this. So it's kind of showing you what in this this particular batch, what is taking up the most cost for this. So in this case, the polypropylene will take up most, and the other components are adding as well. But one of the other things that is useful of this graph is we see that it shows the date when it was made for this one, and then it shows the overall MUV by dollar amount. So this would be what it actually was, what the historic is, and then the standard. And what the purpose of this was to be able to compare the two batches, kind of see where things differed, if there's any trends that they should be looking for, and what could they do to better the process in that. So going further, we are able to look at two batches in other ways too. So another comparison we thought that would be useful is when we're looking at it by a component basis. So what it is we have batch 1 and batch 2, and again they are comparable because we made it so that you can only compare overcaps that are similar. So only blue lids with blue lids, red lids with red lids. And then you're able to compare them, and you're also able to compare them to what the standard is, which is this green line. So then we compare them by quantity, dollar amount, or MUV in dollar amounts. So we can see that if for batch 1, polypropylene was the main culprit for being off on MUV, and then in batch 2, that the main culprit would be this thermoplastic elastomer. So those may be the two things that we need to try to figure out. How do we decrease those variances within those? So finally, we wanted to make it a little more dynamic. So we made it so that the company could update their own information based on when they get it. So if they know that they're working with a blue cap, they would populate all that and at top with the parent component and the batches, and then they would be able to type in their own data here, and they would be able to populate this graph next to it and see how far off, how well are they doing, what should they be doing in the process to change it to make it better. So as we see within that, all these blue bars populate, and that is our current usage. So this graph is used to show that we can see the standard, the current, and the historical, and for this case, this top one is by volume. So what we show basically they can compare all those metrics of historic and standard. How are we doing compared to them? And also these lines they show within plus or minus 1 standard deviation. How are they doing? If wanted to make a range for them that this would be a good MUV to be within for the volume. So and with our company, what they actually had their numbers come in dollar amounts. So what we wanted to do is we also wanted to make sure that they had accessibility to this tool to update it, and we were able to provide a dollar one too. So what we see is if we do the exact same, we populate it, the blue bars come up, and we can compare to the standard, compare to the historical, check that we're within the range, and say that we're good to go. So this is the MUV tool to show material usage variance and to provide a means to visualize and try to update operations for anyone using this type of metric.